Yeah, so the session is being recorded and we'll post this on YouTube also. So you guys can watch it again. And yeah, you can take the screenshot. Oh yeah, let me submit it. I forgot to submit it. Oh, look at that. It isn't that bad. Although I won't say this is the best solution, but okay, pretty good.
Do you use any special book to like? Do you recommend any special book to solve these late coding problems? Like, yeah, from Amazon.
See, lead code problems are all about just running with the basics. So if you are extremely new to coding and lead code, I would strongly suggest, okay, let me show it to you. Go to lead code. In
Mm-hmm.
that, go to problems. And then you have a list of problems from number one.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll also have the difficulty levels. So you can set the difficulty as easy, and
Okay,
you have all the easy questions.
I see.
You can just take them up, start practicing. That's the best way to start. Or I'd also suggest trying HackerRank. HackerRank questions are pretty good if you're a beginner.
Yeah, I think that's where I get the most interviews.
Yeah, HackerRank questions are really good.
Mm-hmm.
And those are like really easy, and it's like they have the whole star system. So you can get 5 stars on Python. That is a really good exercise.
I see. Is it possible if we can solve another random question, but this time with Java? Like I don't know. I'm really new here.
We can do Java, but as you mentioned, we are doing Python because it is easy to understand the algorithm that is happening.
Okay, no problem. Yeah,
So once you know the algorithm, like here we know the formula. So we know the idea that we have to use to tackle this problem. It's just basically factorials. So then you can program the same thing just in a different syntax for Java. The idea remains the same, the syntax will change. That's it. So anybody else wants to ask anything about the question or the solution? If there are no questions, then we'll be moving to the next one. I guess we are good to go for this question then. Okay, let's start the second question. The second question is a really fun question. Let me share the link. This is one of my favorite questions, and you guys will soon know why.
I think I was solving a question like this. So let me just explain my attempt, if it is possible.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
First of all, we need a loop. We need a loop, and
Hmm.
that loop must store the first number and then
Yeah.
compare it with the second one. And then if those don't match it, then it must resume, and it will store another number, and then it should keep storing two numbers. And if those two numbers match, then it will increment the counter and give that counter as an output.
Yes, so that is the actual idea that we'll be using. But the real challenge with this question is, so I had earlier mentioned that we have some constraints also when we are working with lead code. So that's where the challenge actually comes in this question. You have the constraints, you have the number of elements as 10 raised to 5. So 10 raised to 5 elements, and you have limited time to run it, and you have a limited memory bandwidth. You have to do it within that. Otherwise, it will just throw an error immediately. So that is why this is one of my favorite questions. And that is why I took this question right now. So I'll be giving you like 2 minutes, go through the question. Yeah, that's the whole thing. So logically, it's a really easy question, so shouldn't take long. Still, I'll give you guys time. So, any doubts, or do you guys want to ask anything regarding the question? So, question is pretty straightforward. There is a set of integers. In those integers, there's only one number that is repeated more than once, and you just have to find the number. That's it. The important parts of this is we have to solve the problem without modifying the initial array. They mention this because the array is initially unsorted. If it was a sorted array, it was like a really easy question. It could have been done in a few minutes. But since the array is not sorted, we'll have to figure out a logic of our own. That is fine, we can still do it. The other problem is we should use only a constant extra space. This is their way of hinting that we have a fixed memory bandwidth and we cannot exceed that. So let us try doing it. So first of all, um, let us create a list visited. As you mentioned earlier, we have a list visited. We'll just keep filling it up with all the elements that we have visited, and we'll see if there are duplicates or not. Also, one very important thing. So if you see the first example, you'll see that the repeated numbers are consecutive to each other. But it is not necessary because it is nowhere mentioned in the question. So you cannot assume this. And it is shown in the second example as well. There are two threes, but there is a one in between. So we cannot assume that it is always consecutive numbers. They can be separated, they can be placed one at the beginning, one at the end. So we'll have to assume that we have to traverse the entire array for each number. So for that, let us see. Let us start traversing the array. So we'll go for num and nums. By this, we get each element in the array nums. And so once we are traversing, obviously the first thing should be, is the number in visited, or have we visited a number before? If we have visited, that's it. We found the duplicate. Just return num and we are done. If we haven't visited it, then let's just append visited with num. That's it. That's the whole logic. I'll run the solution and yeah, accepted. Test case 1 and 2 passed. Such an easy question. Any doubts?
How did you initialize the visited? Like visited is an empty list.
Yeah, it's an empty list.
but you said if num in visited.
Yeah, so since we are going in a for loop, you can also place this visited line before the num, but in that
Oh,
case, it will cause error because once this line is executed, then num is already invested. So the if condition will always be true. So that is why first of all, we have to check the condition and then go to visited.
I see.
If you want, I can do a dry run also and show you how it works.
Yeah, that would be great.
Cool. So let me go with the first case. Or let's go with second one. That is, I mean, easier to demonstrate. So we know that our num is 3, comma 1, 2. And our second is visited. Our visited is an empty list for now. Next variable is num. So once we begin, visited is empty. Our visited is empty. Perfect. We start in the for loop. We start with the first element. So right now num is 3. Num is 3. Now we check, is num in visited? Num is 3, visited is empty. The if condition becomes false. We do not go for to the return statement and we go to the append. So we append visited with 3. The loop ends, we go back, we go to the next element. Next element is 1, num becomes 1. We again check the if condition. Visited only has 3, so again false. Return is not executed. We go down, we again append it with 1. Once again, we go back to for, num changes to the next element. Next element is 3. Now, once we check the if condition, we see that num is 3 and 3 is invisited. That means this is the repeated element and we will return 3 immediately. Since it's a return statement, it will come out of the function and the question is solved. This question technically comes under data structures usually because based on the language you're using it, you have to be careful about the data structure you are using to implement it. So most of the companies will give you this question if they are working with data structures. This looks like a really easy question, right? An external variable uses only constant. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm coming to. So it was a really easy question. I mean, just 4 or 5 lines and solved. Something feels off, right? I did the run. Everything was right. There was no error, nothing. So let me try submitting it. Okay, something is happening. It is taking a lot of time. Now this is the fun part. We have time limit exceeded. Okay, also the constant extra space. So this actually refers to the fact that we cannot use dynamic programming. If you're working in C++, then when you are defining an array or something, then always have to use a constant. Like you'll have to define an array of a constant size. In Java, you can go dynamic. That is fine, but that's the problem. This question prohibits you from using a dynamic structure. Although there are some workarounds with that as well. But technically speaking, they just have a limited memory bandwidth. But this wouldn't usually be a blocker. The time limit exceeded part will be a blocker. So now, as you guys saw, we just have a single for loop. Nothing special is happening. The complexity is literally O(n). It's a linear complexity. So what went wrong? How do we solve this? I know I'm using Python. Python is a slow language, but since we have set the editor as Python, it will consider with reference to that. And also, if you see here, there were 58 test cases. We passed 55 of them. We failed 3 test cases. For this, I'll give you guys some time. Think over it and let me know what went wrong and how can we solve this. I mean, the logic is flawless, if I may say so myself. It's a really simple logic and it will definitely work out. Logic didn't fail. Remember, we had the constraint of 10 raised to 5 elements. If Leetcode has given a max constraint, you can be fairly certain they will have a test case with these number of elements. And that's pretty much why we failed. If you want, you can even count this. There's a raw output as well. I mean, we are appending because we are maintaining a different array or a different list for this case, because we need to also keep a track of all the elements that we have listed. Because using this only, we can come up with a solution that, okay, this is a wasted element. Or like if we are just brute forcing, then I can just say for num in nums, and then I can begin. I mean, what I mean to say is we can have a nested loop. For each element, we can again iterate through the entire array and we can count the number of times it occurs. Even that is doable. But if a single loop exceeded time limit, just imagine what will happen with a nested loop.
My case, I usually use a set instead of a list.
Yes, that is the exact solution.
Yeah.
So as you guys might have noticed, I use list. If I just change it with set, I will also have to change the function because we'll use add with set and append with list. I'll run it. It was perfect. I will submit it. Although it wasn't really memory efficient, but it was really time efficient. So yes, this using set is the answer. So the actual thing is in Python, every data structure has its own way of processing. The working can be same. You can use a list, you can use a dictionary for you if you want, or you can use a set. But once you're operating with it, then the whole difference was in the add and append. That's what took the entire time. If you really want to see the difference, we can do one more thing. I'll again set it back to list. And I'll set this back to append. I'll run it. And okay, it showed the runtime as 40. I'll run it again. Okay, my bad. You cannot see it over here. But once you are doing it over, let's say 10 raised to 5 inputs, it is really efficient. And that is exactly why I took up this problem. Because it is really easy to just go up with the flow and yeah, cool, I use the list. It is really easy to use. But just a single statement changed the entire problem. So yeah, that's pretty much what I had planned for today, and looks like we are done fairly early. If you guys have any doubts or want to discuss anything, this question or anything at all, feel free to unmute yourself and speak up.
Are we going to solve another question today?
Um, I don't think so because like we have a structure of doing 2 questions per session, and let's keep it that way.
Okay.
So we can use this time to discuss or clear doubts or anything.
Can we go back to the first question?
Yeah, sure. Let me just
I
get the link.
usually not use the function when I solve the problem. So is there any different way to solve the problem without the math function?
Um, yeah, I mean, see, we are just using a factorial. So if you want, you can write your own function for a factorial, but it will take a time. Um, Calling the library is faster in this scenario. And also you can do the brute force thing because the logic is, I mean, still easy. It is just addition of previous two elements. And this is just one way of solving it. Since you know this is programming, there are multiple ways to approach it. Look around, maybe you'll come up with a new algorithm. That's the fun part. Once you're solving it, we have one way of solving it. But it is nowhere written that this is the best way. There can be many ways to do it. There might be some other formula that maybe I am missing out. Because when I saw this, I just had the idea, okay, yeah, this looks like an NCR problem. And it worked out. Yeah, I strongly encourage you guys to try this out. You can try it right now as well. You can try it later also. And if someone comes up with a new solution, definitely let me know. I'd love to see. So I'll stop the recording for now.